Hi, welcome to Chef Richard's Kitchen. I'm Chef Richard Miller. Today on this episode we're going to make blueberry bagels. And I made plain bagels and chocolate chip bagels and Asiago cheese, but some of my favorite is just a good old blueberry bagel or just a plain one. So we're going to start out and we're going to make blueberry bagels. So the first thing we want to start with is we want to start out with about 1.25 cups of blueberries. Now, can you use fresh blueberries? Of course. Can you use frozen blueberries? Of course. Treat them the same way. After all, that's all that a frozen blueberry is pretty much just a fresh one that's been frozen. Okay, blanched and frozen. But anyway, I started out with frozen blueberries. That's what I had. And I've gone ahead and I have thawed them out. And I've let the juice kind of start draining a little bit out of there. And we're going to put those in kind of towards the last. Now, bagels is kind of a 4-step actually process. The first one is where you make your dough, and that's what we're going to do now. We're going to start out, we're going to put the yeast, the sugar, and the water in there, and we're going to let it proof for a little bit. You know, we're going to let it come up to a foam. The next step is we're going to make the dough, we're going to let it rise, then we're going to bring it out, and we're going to form the bagels, let them rise again. Now here's the difference between what I call a good bagel and a not so good bagel. Is a good bagel is poached in water first. Alright, now you can do it without, you can just throw it on a baking sheet and bake them, it'll come out, it'll taste fine. But if you really want that good chewy flavor on there, or chewiness, textured flavor, you really need to poach them for a little bit. And that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to go ahead and bake them. We're going to have some nice bagels in. So let's go ahead and start out. I'm starting out with about 2/3 of a cup of warm water. What I mean warm? Lukewarm water coming out of the tap. You don't want it cold because yeast doesn't like cold. It won't rise very well. It doesn't like boiling, obviously, because that kills the yeast. So somewhere between 80 and probably 95 degrees, somewhere around in there, yeast seems to like it real well in there, and it multiplies quite a bit. So let's go ahead and put the yeast in. And I have got probably 1.5 tablespoons. I have 2 tablespoons of sugar here, and I'm going to put a little bit in there because we want to kind of get the yeast when it wakes up, comes out of its dormant state or suspended animation, whatever you want to call it. It'll be hungry and it needs something to eat. So we're going to have the sugar in there. And then let's go ahead and let's put this in the mixer. And let's just let this blend in a little bit. As soon as it's blended in, I'm going to put a little bit of flour in there, and then we're going to let it sit for about 15 minutes, while it goes ahead and it proofs. I'll be right back. All right, let's go ahead and I'm just going to put in probably about 1/2 cup of flour. That's probably plenty just to get it going. So let me go ahead and put it back on the mixer. And let's go ahead and mix it up again. Okay, welcome back. It's been about 15 minutes and it's proofing very, very nicely. It's risen quite a bit and it's nice and foamy. I'm going to take my detail camera here and let me see if I can get a nice shot of this so you can see what it's supposed to look like. Alright, here we can see the proofing dough in there. You notice it's a pretty liquefied dough, and that's good because we want it to be able to rise and bubble really well so we can tell that the yeast is active and get well started. Okay, we put in about a half cup of flour already, and we're going to take probably about 3 to 3.5 cups to complete it. So let's go ahead and let's put in a little bit more. That's about 2 more. Okay, it's combined very nicely. Let's put in the rest of our ingredients. We're going to add the rest of our sugar. We're going to add about a teaspoon of salt. About a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And let's mix these in. Okay, our dough looks pretty good, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in part of our blueberries here, and I don't want to put them in too many. I do want to put a little of the liquid in because that's going to give the dough a good purple coloring. Now let's go ahead and we're going to mix this at a low speed, because if we mix it at an extremely high speed, all we're going to do is turn our blueberries to pulp. And we'll probably have to add a little more flour as we go along, just simply because there was a lot of liquid that we poured in there. Yeah, it's just spinning. Let me add a little bit more flour. Turn it up a little bit because that kind of helps force the dough a little bit off the dough hook and picks up the blueberries a little bit better. As soon as it starts kneading well, we'll turn it back down. You see, I stop every so once in a while, and I've been cutting most of it out so you don't have to stand there and wait. But one of the things when you're mixing something like this in a dough, whether it be raisins, in bread, or anything like that, is your dough tends to work its way up to the top of the dough hook. And then, of course, what you're mixing in wants to stay down at the bottom. So take a minute every once in a while and just push your dough down, push it off the hook and back down to the bottom, and then let's go ahead and let's mix it some more. Now the last bit of kneading to make sure that all the blueberries are well distributed, we're going to do by hand. That actually looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and we're going to take the dough hook out. It's pulling off very nicely. Okay. Now let me take the mixer down and I'll be right back and we'll go ahead and knead this by hand. Alright, let's go ahead and let's just lightly flour the top of our surface here. And let's turn out our dough. As you can see, it's a nice purple color. And it's a good consistency. But I'm going to do the last kneading by hand. And this will make sure that our blueberries are pretty well evenly mixed in there. Just roll it a quarter turn and press with your palm. This also helps build up a good gluten string. Unfortunately, for you that are gluten intolerant, there are other flours that we can use for this. It just happens I'm using bread flour this time. Okay, here's our dough ball. Now let me go ahead and I want to pull the bowl out. I had this stored, by the way, in the oven. It was off, so this isn't heated or anything. But I did spray it with a little vegetable spray in here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to cover this with some plastic wrap. Now, we're going to let it rise for about an hour until it's doubled in size. When we come back, what we're going to do is we're going to form them into our bagels. We're going to let them rise once more, and then we're going to go and poach them. So, I'll see you back probably about an hour. Don't go too far. You know you'll want to come back. Okay, it's been about an hour, and as you can see, our dough has risen very, very nicely. So let's go ahead now and we're going to cut them up and form them. Just kind of make this into a kind of a little rectangle here, or a little square is what it looks more like. And let's go ahead and we're going to cut it. Oh, yeah. Let's try for 9 pieces. Okay, what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and with our thumb and our forefinger, we want to punch a hole in here, and then we want to go ahead and form it. Now remember, the hole is going to collapse a little bit once it's in the oven. So make it just a little bit bigger than you would think you'd want. Alright. And now let's go ahead and let's put it, go ahead and put it on our parchment paper here. Yeah, it's a little too big. Let me go ahead and bring that down a little bit. Alright, here's the last one here, and I showed you a way that I usually do it, but you might see when you go to the bagel shops, they form them a different way. And that's usually roll them in a string or in a loop. And then there they are like this. All right. Okay, now I have 2 pans of bagels, 9 total. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up, and I'm going to get set up so that I can poach them, and then we'll go ahead and bake them. So don't go far. Okay, now it's time we're going to go ahead and we're going to poach them. And I've gone ahead and I've got a pan of boiling water here. And I wondered, when people say genuine New York style bagels, I always thought, okay, what makes them, New York? And most people said, well, it's the water. Several magazines have tried to get that New York flavor, and they say even using their own water doesn't make any difference. But they said one thing does, and they said that's barley malt. And some of the bagel shops up in New York actually use a barley malt in the water to give it a different flavor. And being I'm a home brewer anyway, and beer is made from barley, I do have some barley malt here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit into the water here. And you see, that's pretty thick stuff. Let's go ahead and get it blended in here. The way they make this, interestingly enough, is they take the barley, they malt it, which is basically they let the grain sprout just a day or so, and then they go ahead and dry it in a kiln. What they do then is they boil it, or not boil it really, heat it up like about 160 degrees, 50, 160 degrees, somewhere around in there, and let all this steep. Then when they have a nice big vat of, this barley wort, as they call it, what they do is they boil this down. And boiling this isn't done by the traditional heat method like this. It's my oven decided it's up to 425 degrees now. But what they do is they pump it in a vacuum chamber. And at a vacuum, that water will boil at about 50 to 60 degrees. And so that gets rid of the water and it concentrates this without having to get the Maillard reactions or lose the flavor that it would be with heating. So there's how you get your barley malt. All right. Now let's go ahead, and as you can see, our bagels have risen again. I gave them about 30 minutes to rise again. Now, we don't want to poach them too long or they'll just get flabby. Probably about 20 to 30 seconds on either side. Then we're going to pull them out. We're going to drain them on the rack. And then we'll go ahead and bake them. Now I did spray my grate with the vegetable non-stick spray on here. So I've tried it without, and they tend to, even though they're wet, they tend to stick. So all right, now that we have these 6 that are ready to go, I'm going to put them back on the parchment again. And I'm going to put them in the oven. And I'm going to bake them at 425 degrees for, let's check them after about 15-20 minutes, okay? Okay, it was actually about 18 minutes and I went ahead and took them out of the oven. And I'll show you over on the detail camera over there how they came out. They came out very good, they're nice, they're golden. And I put the last 3 in. So, at this point, let's just go ahead and we need to let them cool. So, let's go ahead and pull these off. There, we'll let these cool while the last 3 cook. So, once again, we'll be right back. Okay, the last 3 have just come out of the oven, so let me go ahead and let's put these on the cooling rack. Okay, here we go. Now, shall we go ahead and let's open one up, or let's break one? This is one that's already cooled. Okay, look at that. It's got a very, very, very good color. It has a very good chewy texture. It's got a nice golden brown on it. And to be honest, it tastes delicious. So, anyway, go ahead. Here's blueberry bagels. We've done it. There's a lot of steps. It takes a little time to do it because you got to let it rise twice. You have to poach them, you have to bake them. But the results are so worth it. So please, give it a try. It's not that hard. It's very easy, but it is a little time consuming. So please, go ahead and try it. If that's outside your comfort zone, go for it. I mean, after all, watch the video again. This is how you do it. So, once again, take care, God bless. I'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And remember my prime directive, always remember that cooking should be fun. And it is. See you next episode.